Let's turn our attention now to the politics of the day. Joining me is Andrew Clennell with some breaking news, Andrew. On the aged care sector, you've got some more detail as to what Australians can expect as part of a report, which is also due to be released imminently.
I understand as early as tomorrow, most likely tomorrow, the government, the Aged Care Minister Anika Kieran, will be releasing this report into the future of the aged care sector, particularly looking at the cost of the aged care sector to the taxpayer. What does this mean? Well, it means that Australians may have to contribute more for their aged care under the reforms being considered by the government. There are two ways presently you can pay for aged care in Australia. Through a refundable accommodation deposit, the average of which at the moment is $470,000. And then the interest is used from that, operates like an interest-free loan to pay for that aged care. Then there's a daily fee, accommodation fee that can be paid. Many people, many families choose to use both those devices. You can see a situation, the home is sold, the deposit provided, and then perhaps some daily fees in a mix with that $470,000. Well, what the federal government is looking at, according to my sources, is potentially lifting the cap on the refundable deposit, which at the moment is $550,000. It's considering allowing aged care homes to use some of that deposit itself to pay for the aged care of residents. So not just the interest, if you like, and you get the full amount refunded if the person passes away or moves homes, to use some of that capital. And it will look at accommodation fees itself. So we'll get this report, I believe, tomorrow. And no doubt we'll be talking about it for a few days, Kieran. It's certainly in the lead up to the budget. To get these sort of reforms through, you need the Senate. You're most likely to get your support from the opposition. We revealed on Sunday Agenda yesterday there was a briefing with Anne Ruston, the Shadow, and Anika on Friday. Peter Dutton also indicated in his budget reply speech he would be amenable, if consulted appropriately, to changes to the way aged care is funded.
Aged care funding is not a magic pudding. A respectful, dignified, world-class aged care system is only funded by residents or taxpayers. I want to work with the government to ensure that our aged care system remains sustainable. Mr Speaker, I'm a person of my word, and as I stated in my last budget and reply, we support sustainable funding in the NDIS. This budget shows the government reducing NDIS spending growth, and I call on the government to outline how this will be achieved. NDIS participants and their families deserve to know.
Now, Andrew, you've got some mail on the Cook by-election, the date we're expecting to see another vote.
We revealed an hour ago, Kieran, April the 13th. It had to be before those New South Wales school holidays. It couldn't be over Easter, but it means that the new member for Cook will be sworn in around the time of the budget sitting in May. Now, I don't expect to be doing rolling coverage like we were doing on Dunkley and Aston for this one, Kieran. It's a 12% seat. No. My mail is Labor is unlikely to run, so not much of a contest. Looks like Simon Kennedy, who ran for Bennelong at the last election, will be a management consultant who will come into the parliament for the Liberal Party. The local mayor, Carmelo Pecci, was having a crack at it, but the locals there didn't go for him. Instead, they went for Simon Kennedy. He's got the Liberal pre-selection there. Not much of a contest, but we can reveal be April 13.
The nuclear issue, the coalition's throwing everything at this one. It is no longer a small target opposition. We've seen various iterations of that over the last few electoral cycles. Not this one.
I totally agree with your characterisation there, Kieran. They've moved from small target to rather large target, but they think it's worth it. The polling indicates there is some promise in this issue, and they are using the opportunity of this huge rollout of transmission and renewables and how that's upsetting people, and people have doubts about that, to say, why not nuclear? If 30-odd countries do it already, Canada's about to put in small modular reactors, why not? Ted O'Brien on Sunday Agenda. Yesterday, the Shadow Energy Minister saying you could build a nuclear power plant in Australia in 10 years, according to the experts he's spoken to.
The best experts around the world with whom we've been engaging, Andrew, are saying Australia could have nuclear up and running within a 10-year period. Now, there's no doubt that a workforce is key.
Tell him he's dreaming. I mean, I don't know what experts he's talking to. The United States, with a very developed regulatory regime, with a very developed nuclear industry, the nuclear leader of the world, the average build time of a nuclear power plant in the United States has been 19 years.
Well, I can reveal Ted O'Brien's talking to people in the US, Britain and Australia about this, and this is from the government's own statutory authority, ANSTO, who run the Lucas Heights reactor at the moment. A small modular reactor has a projected construction time of 3 to 5 years, while a large reactor takes 6 to 12 years. Now, I revealed last week, Kieran, on your program that the Coalition is looking at 5 or 6 sites in New South Wales, Victoria and beyond for their policy. My understanding, I can reveal today, is that probably one large-scale plant amongst that and the rest are small modular reactors. The government will rubbish that, so the technology's not up to it. But in Ontario and Canada, they've just announced a site for 300 SMRs. The interesting thing is, who will fund this? Well, David Littleproud was on with Laura J saying, let the market decide. But Ted O'Brien was indicating there'd be a heavy government subsidy to make this happen under the opposition's policy. Who's paying for these if they happen? Because is it the federal government? Because a couple of the states have their power generation privatised. So do you see the federal government, under your plan, paying for part of or all of these nuclear power plants?
It doesn't matter what form of energy infrastructure you are looking at. The government does play a role. That's the case today. And it plays different roles. In some cases, in Snowy 2.0, for example, the government plays an ownership role. When you look at the rollout of industrial scale renewables, Labor has introduced the capacity investment scheme on top of the other schemes that are out there at the moment. And that'll be the case when it comes to zero emissions nuclear also.
Andrew Clennell, thank you. We'll talk to you a bit later.